Good afternoon, Grove Park. Hope you're having a great day today. It's bright and sunny outside. I have not stepped out since I come in this morning, so it may be hot. I don't know. I do know that it was rather warm on this date in 1814. I don't know if it was warm here, but I know it was warm in Washington, D.C., and it got warmer as the day went on because today in 1814, the British burnt down D.C. following a disastrous American performance at the Battle of Bladenborough. They moved up and burned the city. The fire would not go out until the next day, when a horrendous summer thunderstorm went through, and in fact, some believe that an actual tornado touched down in central D.C. at that point. Why am I bringing all this up today? Well, it seems to me that there's two kinds of people in this world, and that we are at a moment, and I'll get to that later, where we need to be able to think on those terms. One is a guy by the name of John Armstrong, and John Armstrong was the Secretary of War. It was what the Secretary of Defense used to be called up until I think 1948 or 49. And he repeatedly told the president, James Madison, that Washington was safe. There was no need to install defenses. He was really hands-off. He put in charge of the army that was going to eventually defend D.C., a guy by the name of Winder. And Winder was equally inept in his performance. In fact, he gave up the good ground at Bladenborough, and any potentiality of stopping the British was lost due to his incompetence. John Armstrong really just put his head in the sand and said, well, we're okay. On the other side is James Monroe, who at the time was the Secretary of State, and shortly thereafter would become both the Secretary of State and the Secretary of War after James Madison fired John Armstrong. James Monroe went out, scouted conditions, was very close, if not actively involved in a fight at one point, sent the word back, you guys need to run. The vast majority of American history that we know of today would have been lost if it wasn't for James Monroe on that day. James Monroe really is one of those overlooked presidents in American history, but he did the hard stuff on this day in 1814 and over the weeks to come. In fact, James Monroe would become president in 1816, and it was called the era of good feelings, but it was also a very divisive point in American history, and it was James Monroe who did the hard work of bringing the country back together. Why am I giving you this little dose of history today? Well, beloved, it's just simply this. At this point in life, you can either be determined to be John Armstrong or you can be James Monroe. James Monroe thought outside of the box, did extraordinary things. James Monroe made true to himself throughout all that. And meanwhile, John Armstrong just literally played the role of Nero and fiddled while D.C. burned. I bring this up on a host of fronts, but for those of us in Alamance County, I will say that it should be for us at a time of great difficulty in our county where the church would step up and say, we can find solutions to help ABSS during this difficult time. We cannot be ignoring things, beloved. We have to be proactive like James Monroe. In the end, I'm reminded of what Mordecai said to Esther. Who knows that you've been put into the kingdom for such a time as this? And it's a question to us about whether or not we will seize the initiative, we will be leaders in our community, or will we just all let it go to the wayside? The question is for us. I personally think we should choose to be James Monroe at the moment and not John Armstrong. So, will you do that? Will you do that? As you do, and you do exercise leadership, and I pray that that's what you'll choose, remember to do so with grace upon grace upon grace. Because truly, grace abounds. I'll look to see you on Sunday, where we'll be dealing with a bountiful harvest. The question is, what are we going to be harvesting at 10 o'clock here at Grove Park? Until then, take care, God bless, and remember, grace abounds.